voters. It'll be on our link so you can get it recorded, and our moderator is going to tell you about that again. And also, it'll end at 12:30. And so you have the time then to come up and talk to the candidates and say, you know, my question wasn't answered, so can you answer it? And I just want to remind you that we're here to listen to these candidates so that you, the voters, can come back and go to your ballot that you got in the mail that's due November 2nd and have an informed way of who you want to vote for. Any questions, audience? Okay, it's turning it over to
Let's
Marlene.
start. Let's start.
Thank you.
Okay, start.
Can you hear this all right? Okay, because I have to face this way. So I'm sorry, but the candidates will pay more attention to me than I will. Okay, thank you. And I want to thank the audience for coming to the forum today, as well as all the candidates who are taking their time out on a beautiful Saturday to come inside and talk to you voters. The League of Women Voters of Arapahoe and Littleton County is sponsoring this forum, and I will be your moderator today. I'm Marlene Burkhead. In addition to Vicki and myself, we have other league volunteers today. We have Paula Moore and Jill Smith at the timetable, and Joe Fetter, who's passing out cards and pencils, and Barbara and Lynn Dungy, who are taking this forum today for publication on YouTube. We also want to acknowledge Pam Chaborn for requesting our help in presenting this forum. There are 9, as you probably all know, there are 9 candidates vying for the position, for 4 positions on Littleton City Council. You will be asked to elect the mayor and candidates to represent District 1, District 3, and 1 at-large position. This election is also the first time that Littleton restaurants, Littleton, well, they'll have a chance to vote too. Littleton residents will have the opportunity to directly elect a mayor. Previously, this position was always chosen by the city council. So the change that this is the very first time, and the change was approved by Littleton voters last November. So this is a groundbreaking election, as well as interesting for all candidates involved. Okay, it's my pleasure to I also have to say that Patrick Driscoll, one candidate, District 1 candidate, is not here today as he had a prior event scheduled out of town. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce the remaining 8 candidates present. You will remain seated, but please wave your hand when I mention your name. For mayor, John Buck, Carol Fay, and Kyle Schechter. District 1, Candace Ferguson. District 3, Stephen Barr and Paul Bingham. At large, Krista Kafer and Gretchen Wright. Thank you very, very much. Okay, we have guidelines. The league usually conducts a forum according to these guidelines. Each candidate will have 1 minute to make an opening statement. Each candidate will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. Each candidate then also will have 1 minute to answer a question from the audience. There will be no rebuttals to any of the questions due to time constraints. But, and as the moderator, when the question period begins, I will start rotating the candidates so everybody has a chance to start first. A note on audience participation, and I think that I don't need necessarily to explain this to you, but I will. You were given an index card and a pencil when you entered the room. If you have a question for the candidate, write it on the card, but be sure that your question includes all candidates. Raise your hand after writing the question on your card, and your lead member will come and pick it up and take it to a table to sort out the questions just for duplication method. Okay. Are we all right? Let's begin with the opening statement. At this point, we would ask you to hold your applause, as Vicki asked, and turn off your cell phone. Opening statement, candidate for mayor.
You me okay? Yeah. We are at a very critical time for our city. We need strong leadership. We need transparency. We need decisions that are based on information. Make an informed decision. We need information. So that's what we need for city. And I believe wholeheartedly that I have what it takes to offer that. My experience professionally, personally over the last decade in our city, it has led to many. Oh, thank you. Has led to many collaborative efforts that I've founded, been involved in, or championed. We've been successful in creating very sustainable aspects in our city, and more recently on the transportation board. I know the budget needs for infrastructure, and leading a nonprofit, I know what it means to have to stick with our mission and to have strategic planning. And
My name is Carol Fay. I've been on city council for the last 4 years. It's a lot like getting a college degree, a 4-year degree, and you learn so much so fast. It also reminds me of my Honeywell career. I was a technical sales manager for 20-some years, and my job was translating between corporate reality, which I think is a lot like the city, and my customers, who were plumbing and heating contractors, and they're a lot like our citizens. So what I spent most of my time doing was customer service, translating between what the corporation had to offer and what it thought it was doing really well, versus sometimes what the customers needed and wanted, helping them understand what the system was that was delivering what they wanted. I love Littleton, and I love customer service. I really, really do.
Schlachter, I'm the tractor.
Tractor.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kyle Schlachter. I am running for mayor. I think I am the best candidate for mayor because I believe I have the most experience and most applicable experience. I've served on city council, so I understand the dynamics of working with council, working with city staff. I'm the only candidate for mayor to have actually served as the chair of a board and run public meetings, set agendas. And I also work for a state appointed board. So I have the perspective of being a staff member to a board that sets policies. And so I think that gives me the most applicable experience for being mayor and running meetings and working with city staff and working to get things done. Thank you.
One, Ms. Ferguson. No.
All the mics are working now, and I know what you did, so I think they're.
Okay. Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you. My name is Candace Ferguson, and I am from Littleton as much as I am from anywhere. I grew up in a military family, and I know you want to know what branch. It was the Army that my mother served in. We traveled around the world. We landed here when I was in middle school. So I have been here since the 80s, we'll say, in a very long time. And I attended Newton and Euclid and then on to Heritage. And after high school, and after college, I knew that this was the place that I wanted to live in. My background is in marketing communications, and I have worked for Fortune 500 companies, leading global initiatives around the world, serving large industry, as well as working for small business. And I am now a small business owner, launching 2 niche businesses right here in a thriving marketplace. I have the background and the experience of digging into challenges and problem solving. I look forward to bringing that to city council.
Mr. Baylor?
Hi, I'm Paul. I'm a native Coloradoan. Betty and I have, my wife is right over there, the redhead, have lived in 4 different corners of the United States, thanks mainly to the Army. Was in the Army twice, once as a company commander of 300 people. I learned a lot doing that. Anyway, we learned that Littleton is the best place to come back to. We came back here almost 60 years ago. I worked for Mark Brad as an engineer for 30 years, retired. Since that time, I have spent a lot of time with the Littleton City Council, studying the city government. I believe I can say honestly, I've been to way more city council meetings than anybody in this room. I know about the council. I can start running right at the first meeting that I get to. I like my buddy Steve here. He needs to come along a little bit later than tonight.
Well, thank you for that, Paul. My name is Steve Barr. I'm also an engineer, but my background is environmental engineering. I work for a nonprofit doing rural water and wastewater infrastructure programs for volunteers across the country. My background is also in foreign aid, so I've been doing water, wastewater programming and local governance work across the world. But in reality, when my family moved here, because we love this community, we love this school, we love our neighborhood. And since we've moved here, I've been giving back through the South Metro Land Conservancy, the Highline Canal Conservancy, and working with the homeless population in downtown Denver as actually part of my day job. But my entire, I guess, resume or CV has all been about public service and that interface between good governance, technical subject matter, and obviously making changes in people's lives. So thank you guys so much for having me out.
Hi, I'm Krista Kafer, and I, like everyone else up here, I love Littleton. I've been a homeowner for 15 years, and I grew up just west of the city in the Columbine area, which is Columbine High School, and then on to CU. I have 25 years of public policy experience. I've worked for members of Congress. I've been a state and federal contractor. I've taught at the university level, both public policy as well as communications. And the more I list off, I'm just going to start feeling kind of old. So I've got a lot of experience, and I want to use that experience for the city that I love. My priorities are livability, opportunity, and security. And I recommend my website, which is kristakafer.org, talks a little bit about each one of those, how important it is that we've got homes and opportunities to open a business and solutions for traffic, and that our communities are safe, secure from urban camping and from crime. I ask humbly for your vote this November. I've got some yard signs outside, and I've got some placards on the table. Thank you so very much.
Ms. Ryder?
Hi, my name is Gretchen Riding. I'm running at large. Okay. I'm Gretchen Riding. I'm running at large alongside my fellow colleagues here. And I just want to name how difficult I think it's been the last year and a half, almost 2 years with this pandemic. And many of us here are wearing masks today. I thank you for that, because it's not over. We're still in the thick of it. And our world is changing rapidly, and it's chaotic. And Littleton is a part of that. I think we need some leadership that can help navigate those uncertain sort of territory. And I'm a social worker and therapist, and I hope I can bring that perspective to City Council, the ability to collaborate with other regional partners. I like to say you can sit me down in the middle of chaos, and as a social worker, I can kind of unpack that and help make sense of that. And I think we need that leading in. So I humbly ask for your vote as well, and look forward to this next hour with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for participating in this despite the difficulties that we are experiencing. We'll now move to the audience participation part of the program. And that will include answering questions from the audience. As previously mentioned, audiences will have 1 minute to answer the question. The question will be the same for each candidate, and I will rotate the order of participants. Ferguson. And the question is, what are the benefits that make the city of Littleton a place to live and raise a family?
Thank you for that question. Littleton is incredible. We are a destination community. What that means is we are in a hub. We're right in the center of all major traffic ways, whether it's easy access from Santa Fe through 470. What a beautiful community we have. What makes this such an incredible location is the people. Every day, I am out knocking doors. I've been here for most of my life, meeting with people who lift each other up. We care. And at the beginning of this pandemic that we are still not through, what I saw was the most incredible human effort to check in on our neighbors, to make sure that we were okay, to work with our teachers, to make sure that they have the resources that we need. Our schools are thriving, as are our businesses should be. Thank you.
District 3, Mr. Bill?
Hi. I love Littleton, like everybody else up here. We're sitting in one of the main benefits of living in Littleton right here. This library is wonderful. It is the most active library you'll ever find. Programs for everybody, newer people like me, young people, kids, etc. It is just great. The museum is also a huge benefit. I just had my model airplanes at the museum on display for a year anyway. We've got a very involved populace, more so than most cities. It is a great population around here. And I'm about finished, it looks like. Thank you.
Mr. Barr?
So I would say, the thing that got me into running for this race, the thing that got me so involved in every aspect of the city were my friends and my neighbors. And I don't want to be repetitive about saying the people, but it truly is my neighborhood. I live over in the Highline Canal co-housing community. And they have just opened up, they've been so warm and welcoming. I've opened up our world, especially for my daughter who's in first grade. Really the second reason we moved to Littleton was because my wife is a speech therapist and she works in public schools. And my daughter is now attending public schools. And that was a huge decision for when we were looking for a place to settle down, put down roots, and kind of make a plan for the rest of our life. And that's actually one of the biggest reasons I'm running is because I want to make a future for her, for my wife in those schools. So those were, some of the biggest things for me as, the schools and neighborhoods. Can't, dissuade the folks in the museum and the library that we're sitting in as well. But Littleton is a small city in and of itself, and it's so wonderful to have all that connectivity. So thank you.
At-large candidates, state paper?
So when I bought my house 15 years ago, I bought an ugly with potential house. And yes, it was quite ugly. And luckily I'm handy, so I was able to fix it up. But I bought in the neighborhood that I did over by Slaughterhouse Gulch because I wanted to live in a neighborhood where people shared zucchinis, where people checked in on each other, where people had chickens, where people shared different things. And you could actually leave a key for a neighbor and they'd come check your house for you. I love Littleton. I love Littleton. I love our parks. I love the Art Depot. I love Hudson Gardens. I love tools. I love all of our businesses. I love our little businesses, Romano's, of course, I've talked about their eggplant Parmesan before. I'm a little bit food oriented. I confess, like a Labrador retriever and thing, but I even love Home Depot for teaching me how to tile. I want this beautiful city to continue to grow and be all that it was when I moved here and more.
Yeah, I echo some of the sentiment of my friends.
Outdoor voice.
Okay, outdoor voice. I'm a therapist, we don't have this loud voice. There is something just so charming about the city, and I was chatting with Dick and Karen earlier today about how it reminds us of our hometown. And I am from Illinois originally, and the Main Street just reminded me, when I moved to Colorado, reminded me of that. And it's just a charmingness, it's a coziness, it's we're gonna take care of each otherness. It's, the parks especially, I live right around here, and Kettering Park saved my life during the quarantine. I mean, I was out there walking every day, and I might have seen some of your faces and your dogs, and stepped over all the goose poop that's there as well. It's beautiful and charming, and we need to protect and preserve that, and that's definitely something I want to work on.
Now we'll go back to the mayoral candidates. Mr. Buck.
Starting with my own family, my wife and I have 4 kids, and that's over there. So, 13 years ago, well, within 8 months, I was here for a 3-year degree at the seminary. We bought a house. This is a place I want to stay. So there's something about it here that I want us to cherish. And the history of our city is something that is very unique. And as we talked about from others, the engaged, informed, and very thoughtful citizens we have. I've been talking about, there's a lot of issues we have, but we're very passionate for our city. That's a good thing. We want to make sure that that's heard by our leaders. And even with all this, I am still most excited about our potential. What we can do to weather what's coming and keep what we have.
Okay. That's the good first. It's my work.
No.
How about this one? This one works.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, Littleton certainly cares. Not just about us in this room, but also other people such as homeless and immigrants, and people have a harder way to go. I've served for 3 years on the Tri-Cities Homelessness Policy Group, and we, to say it briefly, found ways to care for homeless families as well as homeless individuals without putting a whole lot of burden on our existing citizens through taxes and fees. We found regional funding. And this applies also to our immigration situation that this library brings up, that by going regional and combining funds and sources, we can serve many immigrants and many immigrant families as well.
So like other candidates up here, I feel that people are the reason that Littleton is such a great place to live. People that, and our values. We value the history that Littleton has to offer, from historic Main Street to Littleton Boulevard, Arapahoe Hills, Littleton Heights. Those neighborhoods have meaning to the people because of the history they have. But it's not just the history of Littleton, it's the inclusivity and the welcoming nature of the people here in Littleton. We want to be a welcoming community. Let people come in, live here, have people come and visit. And so when people outside of Littleton say the word Littleton, they know what they mean, because that sense of place, because of the people that live here and the values that we all share.
Thank you. We will now start on question 2 with the District 3 candidates going first. Mr. Bingham, I think you'd like to question. Why do you want to serve on the Littleton City Council?
Oh, well, that's easy. I've lived here a long time with my wife Betty, raised 2 kids. I've watched the government, I've read their reports, monthly reports on revenue. I've watched that carefully through the pandemic. I know what's going on with the government. I've been, like I said, I've been to a bazillion of their meetings. I know what they've done. I know what they're faced with now, and I'd like to be on the voting end of that situation and sit out in the audience. So I believe I have the knowledge to step right into that. Thank you.
It's a loaded question, because a lot of us are up here for a lot of the same reasons, and honestly, a lot of personal reasons too. My life, my career path, things I do in my free time. Maybe it was starting in Boy Scouts when I was young, and maybe it's culminating in public service, now that I'm older. But I think giving back has kind of always been part of who I am, especially during the pandemic. It would have been really easy to sit there and play the new Nintendo Switch for hours on end, honestly. But what gives me heart, what gives me hope, what gives me purpose in my life is giving back to my community. And that's starting with clearing brush in my neighborhood. But I feel like I have more to offer because of who I am and my background and my professional experience, that I can give back and do the most good I can for the most number of people in this city. And so I feel like public service was just always part of that journey for me. So thank you.
Thank you. So when I reflect back over the volunteer work I've done as an adult, I think about what I've done and how it's connected to me personally. So I volunteered with hospice, partly because my family was helped by hospice. I volunteered in the Passion Humane Society because I'm crazy about animals. I volunteer with immigrant services and women's literacy in Pakistan because I love to travel and I love meeting people from other countries. So why do I want to serve here in Littleton? Because I love Littleton, because it's touched my life. Like I said, I grew up about 10 minutes west of here in Columbine area, and I remember Littleton Main Street. I remember the parks. I remember going to Stern Park for a birthday party. I want to be part of making the city better and better. It's already awesome, but I think its best days are ahead. And I want to be part of that. With 25 years of public policy experience, I believe I'm uniquely suited to be able to help that journey along. Thank you.
So the last 2 years, year and a half or so, have been incredibly challenging, as I mentioned earlier. We've got riots, we've got fires, we've got civil war. I don't know about you, but I felt really helpless sitting here in our beautiful, safe part of Littleton. And it kind of prompted me to think, well, what can I do? Because I can't fix Afghanistan, I can't fix some of the other global problems, but we know that global stuff starts at home. And so I want to serve because I want to start at home. I want to start working on eco-friendly buildings and preserving our parks and ensuring public safety, addressing diversity, inclusion, and equity, things like that.
I want to serve on Littleton City Council because the decisions we make there affect the lives of our citizens, and in very real ways. And if we are not taking that seriously, if we are treating this like just a stepping stone or anything like that, not having the information we need, we forget that this affects the lives of people who live here, and hopefully for the better. And that's why I am wanting to serve, because we need informed decisions. We need information to do that, the right type of information, the right people at the table, we need transparency. We need to think about our current citizens and the future. And we need courage. We need not more of the same. And I believe Littleton deserves better than what has been.
Okay.
What makes me want to do this some more is I love customer service. I'm addicted to it from my job at Honeywell. And I want to do more of it. That means getting things fixed for people and see that smile when they're happy. It also means explaining complicated things so people go, oh, is that what that means? I love that. I'm also really good at directing things, and that is why I want to be mayor rather than a council member. My experience in Antarctica was when I did emergency communications, is that in the middle of the night when everybody else was asleep, I got a radio call that requested an emergency landing of an Italian plane. I was the only one awake. I directed the landing of the plane, so I can do that as mayor.
I hope no planes request the mayor to land. The reason why I want to serve on city council is because I want to work for the people of Littleton. And when I first decided to run in 2017, it was to provide better representation for the people of Littleton. You know, I think it's important that our city council and the members of city council have their pulse on the community, know what the issues that the community is thinking about and wants to see fixed in the future. And I think that's really important for council members to be looking to the future, be proactive, and want to get things done for our community. That's why I want to serve as mayor. Thank you.
District 1, Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you. I would like to serve on Littleton City Council for a number of reasons. The first being bringing my history of servant leadership right to the people, to work with those who have been underrepresented and underserved for a very long time. I look forward to bringing a brand new energy, a brand new life to the city of Littleton, with not just my professional history, but my personal history of serving and volunteering in our schools, as well as being the person who sees the big picture, who understands the interconnectivity of all of the issues at play, to understand that when we pull one lever and make one change at one intersection, that it intersects and connects with every person involved, that it has a ripple effect throughout our community and throughout the community. I look forward to doing that.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Can you hear my, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Question 3, and we'll start with at-large candidates. And the question is, how do you yes, support for it. How do you support the Tri-City Homeless Action Plan?
A lot of work went into that plan. And think about Tri-Cities, that's Sheridan, Inglewood, and also Littleton. A lot of work went into connecting those who want services to be able to get those services. And so, obviously, everything is a little refining from time to time, but I looked at the report and I supported. Our Denver metro area spends about $481 million on homelessness every single year. And I want to make sure that those people who want services, who want to be able to have a better life, access those services. I myself have volunteered at soup kitchens, given to the Denver Rescue Mission. I've seen Step Denver's work as well. And for those who want services, I want them to be able to get it. I am concerned, however, about urban camping, and I do not want any neighbor, any Littletonite to have to sit next to, or have to live next to an urban campground with trash and rats, needles. So I think we need to have a balance of helping those who want help, but also having those who want to urban camp move on.
Thank you, Ms. Harden.
So I've been working with the homeless population for more than 10 years, and it's complicated. It's a wraparound approach is kind of needed. I think the Tri-Cities Policy Working Group kind of addresses that. I support the idea of having a regional coordinator that would coordinate through Inglewood, Sheridan, and Littleton, because this is a very transient population. I want to see more funding, and my understanding is there could be either available through Arapahoe County or through American Rescue Plan funds to help pay for that, which would be great. And Littleton and the other cities would be on the hook for that. I take a little bit different of approach than Krista, I think, on this one when it comes to urban camping. I acknowledge that is very frightening when we walk over trash and needles and things like that. But this is a population that needs understanding and compassion, and we need to translate that to policy. When we see folks who are on the street, we need to look them in the eye. These are people, these are humans, these are our neighbors, they are part of Littleton. We need to honor that.
We'll go back to the mayoral candidates.
So I do support it. I think a lot of effort's gone to it. I thank Dave for being involved with that. 3 cities involved, that's a huge task. It takes a lot of collaboration to do that. And one of the things that we found in the collaborative efforts, I've done stuff in Arapahoe County, Jeffco, Douglas, and this, of course, in Littleton is my priority. We found that, like the Gestalt theory says, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. There's a multiplying effect. We can come together and do these things. So it's a big, grand plan. I think it's a great plan. I do think we need to remember to be patient with it. This takes time. And to do it well, we have to give it time and just stay the course and not just give up. One of the point of phrase the different collaborative efforts is that positive, effective collaborative change moves at the speed of trust. I hope as a city, we work with the others to be able to make effective long-term change.
Ms. Bay?
As you know, I've been a member of that Tri-City Homelessness Policy Group for 3 years, and I can say it really fast finally. We First, what we did was collect data, which was such an important step. And some of the surprising things we found is that many of the homeless individuals are veterans. We found that many of them have PTSD and brain injuries, often from having served in the military. We found that many of them grew up right here, and it's easier to live homeless someplace where you originally lived. We also found that many of the homeless are families. And a heartbreaking moment was when I went to a campsite along with people who stop in on homeless camps and found little pink toddler shoes there. There was a toddler being raised in a tent. That's all.
I'll keep my answer short. With one, yes, I support the plan. I think working as a team with Inglewood, Sheridan, and Arapahoe County is much better than going this issue alone.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I also support the Tri-Cities plan. In addition to that, we must realize that that is a prong of a multi-pronged approach. It is not the only thing that we have at play. Working with other leaders, I recently just met with Chief Stevens regarding the support that he would like to see for the police department and regarding mental health support specifically to serve our homeless population. To have an individual or multiple individuals who are on staff who can actually be informed and go forth into the community and be that conduit between a police action and a civilian action. That is the interconnectivity that we need to serve these people who have, they're individuals. They need to be seen as the human element, not just a collective group. Thank you.
District 3, Mr. Bingham.
Hi, I support the Tri-Cities action plan that was just approved not very long ago in City Council. I think it's great. I think Carol Fay has done a fine job. The 3 years she's been on that as the city's liaison. 2 years I volunteered to help them gather data when they're in their gathering data stage of the whole thing. That was before the pandemic, so that shows that I support it. I'd like to see it moved on to a more regional thing, and an idea I'm going to promote for that if I get on council. I think if we provided lockers to those people to put their valuables in, it would be wonderful. If I was a homeless person, I had a place to lock up even a small amount of stuff, I'd be more than grateful. Thank you.
Mr. Barr.
Well, I think it's a fantastic question. It's obviously really complex. The Tri-City homelessness policy is a great starting block. It is what our city needs, and I'm glad we're trying to get ahead of it. I want to take that policy to the next level. And to be honest, starting off, understanding that compassion is key to this. Whatever actions we do take, that the generosity of the citizens of Littleton need to be at the center of the actions that we do take. I've worked with the Safe Outdoor Space program in downtown Denver. I know it's incredibly controversial. I've worked with Colorado Village Collaborative on a number of projects as well. And I just want to say that in my limited experience with working with these populations and these organizations, we need to bring experts into the city to start crafting out what those next steps are. I think co-responder programs that Candace was mentioning have to be part of that solution. Blockers can absolutely be part of that solution, but no major metropolitan area has figured out the answer because the investment is large and we need to have compassion and generosity at our hearts to even get started.
Thank you again. We'll proceed to question 4, and we'll start with the mayoral candidates this time. The question is, how do you differentiate the responsibilities of city council and city manager and staff?
Great question. One of the things that I think is important for our citizens to know is that particularly with the mayor position, it is essentially facilitation of the work of the city. And as a voting member for the citizen, 1 of 7. And help set agenda with manager And the staff are the experts when it comes to particular aspects. Being on the transportation board, we have talked with Public Works, we've talked with different sides of that. Particularly, we've seen that they have they are that's their livelihood that they're going into. That does not mean that we just assume that what they're doing is always right. We have to ask the right questions. We have to make sure that we're focusing on the right things as city council and making sure that we have the right people in the key positions, particularly attorney and city manager, because that is our role as the city council to hire or fire that if they're not lining up with others.
Well, with my love of customer service, my favorite part is the council's role as interface between the city employees and the citizens. And so city council members are do their best when they're interacting with the citizens and translating between the professionals at the city government and the citizens who are receiving the services, but aren't always receiving what they want, so refining that. So everything that she listed there, except for the council members, are professionals. They are really skilled and they're paid to do that. Council members are volunteers, no, paid volunteers. And so we are going between the two.
So it is important for a council member to understand the distinction in the roles of council and staff and the city manager. City council is supposed to stay high level and direct broad policy, give direction to the city manager, who then has his staff administer those policies and put them into work. And if those policies aren't being implemented the way council would like, then they should provide new direction to the city council, or to the city manager. And so it's very important that council members understand, say, high level policy, have good discussions on issues. So the city manager is very clear on how to proceed. On the ballot this year is a sales tax increase 3A. And when city council was discussing that, my opponent, Councilmember Fay, refused to participate in the discussion on that and refused to provide direction to the city manager. It made the work of the city manager that much more difficult. So it's important to know the role and of the city's council members. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So I had the great pleasure to meet with all levels of city leadership early on in this campaign. And what a pleasure it was to meet with the paid professionals, the actual experts behind every level of finance, technology, our police department, our infrastructure, our roads. That was such an eye-opener for me because I knew that there were people doing these jobs, but I didn't have a name and a face with a who. Today, I do, and I have a direct line to those individuals to seek informed information, to make those decisions, to work with the city and to listen to the citizens and have that data-driven information to be able to proceed. Thank you.
Hi, this is repetitive, but the council, of course, is the philosophy department. They decide kind of which way the city's going. They are the boss of the city manager. We have a wonderful city manager right now, as far as I'm concerned. He turns to the staff to do it, to research, to figure things out and bring solutions back to him and or the council, depends on what's going on. If I get on council, I'm going to promote that the staff provide more than one solution to a given problem. I've felt that way for years, and we need that to happen. Thank you.
Well, as an engineer, I want to get in the weeds on the details of every little thing on that policy agenda, but I know my responsibility as a council member is not to do that and to hold back that instinct in me. Really, it is to set the policy agenda, and that's what all the other candidates have been speaking to. I want to also, compliment that with saying that being a council member is a two-way street. We are not just directly translating your wishes and desires to city manager and thus city staff to carry out those policy agendas. You're also a two-way street in education as well. We hear from city staff, we hear from experts like we've been all talking about, and then we are also translating these ideas into concepts and plans and processes that you as citizens can understand. So it really is the job of a council member to also be an educator as well as a good listener.
What I love about the city manager, city council dynamic is that it's kind of like a legislature and an executive. You've got the council, which is setting policies, which is setting ordinances and setting vision. We haven't had a chance yet to look at the Envision report. It's an extraordinary document prepared for by staff, but that vision that is set forth by the council is sort of the first step. And then there's the executive, the execution of those plans by staff. What I like about it is that there is both a collaboration, but there's also a little bit of accountability there in which council can ask questions of the city manager, can say, hey, can we have a little bit more information? How are you doing this? Are there other solutions? It really, really works well. And like Candace, I've had a chance to meet with a number of staff. I think we have a really great team and I look forward to working with them in the future.
Well, I see my role as a city council person versus, city staff as being a listener on the ground. I mean, I spend my days with individuals hearing about their day-to-day and what gets in the way of that, barriers that they have. So I see just that as an extension of continuing to talk to residents and our wonderful people of Littleton of what their struggles are, raising those concerns with the city, especially if they've had some roadblocks in trying to get things changed in their day-to-day lives. And I hope I can be that kind of person that folks can come to, I can listen, and then translate that into the policy that really is the purview of city council. We don't do it alone. It's not one person. It's 7 people that make those decisions.
Now time for District 5, and speaking of taxes, we do have a tax question for you.
What district? What question 5?
Question 5.
You said district 5.
I said, District 1, here's the question for you, Candace. On the November ballot for the city of Littleton is the 0.75% sales tax, 3A. What would you propose to increase the revenue if it does not pass? And I'm going to start with District 1.
Thank you very much for that question. We are at a tipping point in Littleton. The reason why the 0.75 initiative is on the ballot to raise our taxes is because this is the first time in 50 years that Littleton has seen such an increase. We are desperate, and I hate to use that word from a city perspective, but we truly are, in order to fund what we have at hand. Not just get ahead, but to come up to speed. Without this, we are dead in the water. In less than 5 years, we will be in a $20 million deficit in our city. We have already proven that we cannot cut our way out of this. There are very few alternatives to what we are able to do moving forward, other than propose legislation for a smaller tax increase in the future. Thank you.
This is a really tough one. I agree with what Candace just said. To prevent this from happening, I testified in front of council a few weeks ago that, hey, go for 0.5. That's safe. Don't go for 0.75. That's too risky. And I still feel that way. Also, to help that not happen, I volunteered for the Citizens Committee to pass 3A, and I'm working with some of the other leaders of that committee to do that. If that doesn't pass, we're in big trouble. Thank you.
Mr. Barr.
Yeah, it's a hard question to contemplate, considering how frightening that actually might be. I work with communities with extensive deferred infrastructure maintenance all the time. It is a frightening prospect to see the rising cost of construction go up and have that market chase away from you. Regards to the question is what to do without it. there are more and diverse ways to raise revenue in the city, not necessarily of the magnitude that we need to solve the immediacy of the problem, but we'll have to employ those measures as well as others in order to meet that funding gap. It is a huge gap. This tax increase only goes to fund a partial amount of that deferred maintenance. I would like to be a city that gets ahead of its maintenance problems. And I would like to put us on a path to getting there in that time period that we can all actually enjoy the benefits of it too.
So I've only voted for a tax increase one other time in my life, and that is for Littleton Public Schools. They put forth a plan, they showed that they had a need, and I voted for it. Similarly, when the city manager and I talked, he said, we cannot get out of this without this tax increase. You think about it, it's 75 cents on $100. It is not that big a thing. And like Paul, I did encourage the lower amount and testified for city council asking for that. But we have what we have in front of us, and if we don't pass that, I worry about buildings becoming unsafe because of deferred maintenance. I worry about roads. There is a point where a road becomes too degraded to actually repave it in a less expensive way. And so those roads will continue to deteriorate, and we will see our quality of life here in Littleton really see a reduction of that quality of life. And so we have to pass this. Even if you don't vote for me, vote for it.
Let's make Littleton a great place to spend money. We know income is generated from that. Let's invest in our businesses, especially our local cool shops. Let's invest in our restaurants. Let's get more hip places to get a burger, bring your family, and invest that way. I think that would be a start if this doesn't pass. There are additional taxes that we could also pursue. They weren't on the ballot this time, but they could definitely put on next year. There's a proposed marijuana tax or a lodging tax. It would not bring in nearly what the sales tax increase that's on the ballot now will bring in, but that would generate additional revenue for the city.
So infrastructure is a huge deal. I've been on the transportation board. We've had direct, hundreds of pages of info on this compared to the summaries from council. And so we will have a visible decrease in the near future if we don't do something. Which is one of the reasons I said we need to wait on the Aspen Grove decision. So we know we have to hear what the citizens say. As much as everyone's been saying, yeah, I do believe 3A needs to pass. The question is, what do we do if not if it doesn't? Okay. So the truth is, if it does not pass, we need to be thinking about some innovative changes in our retail revenue. Because 79% of our revenue comes from sales and use tax. So it's a no-brainer to have businesses be healthy in our city. Okay. In addition to that, it was just asking increasing revenue. Well, we do have to look at cutting expenses as well, which means that there are duplications of services. Cutting expenses would be what we need to do to make sure we are ahead of our infrastructure.
I sense a pattern. Works with this microphone. I got to retire when I was 57 years old, full retirement. And a big part of that was my own ability and mindset to do more with less. And so if the taxpayers, the voters decide not to go for the tax increase, then I'm ready to lead the city as mayor in a new way of being. We'll have to change our mindset from this is how we want to spend our money to this is how we want to be very careful in deciding how we spend our money. Then we'll need to gather data. Again, the process of problem solving. Gather data about what the situation is, gather data about what the problem really, really is. It might not be a shortage of money. It might be something else.
If 3A doesn't pass, there's going to be some hard choices to be made. There's going to have to be some difficult decisions on cuts that no one would like to see. You know, the city's budget is already as trim as it can be. City staff council has studied, and they know they can't cut their way out of this. And so there'll be things that we all want and need that will have to go away, unfortunately. There'll be new revenue options brought before voters again, such as the plasma tax and recreational marijuana tax, and probably some other innovative ideas. However, I'm fairly confident it's going to pass. I've talked to so many people, and people understand that this is an investment in our community. People want to invest in it, understand the need to invest in our future and our infrastructure. It's very disappointing to see some of the misinformation out there. I've seen some yard signs and information in the Blue Book about a surplus that exists. I don't know where this person is getting this information from, but there is no $76 million surplus that's going to save us. So don't believe everything you read and see, because that's a lie.
Thank you. Now go to the sixth question. And we will start with district candidate. Question. In the comprehensive plan and land use code promising quality design and sense of community, how do you reconcile friendly sites, short-term profits, and lasting community value?
No. Can you say that one more time?
Oh, that's very complicated. Thank you. For the comprehensive plan and land use code, promising quality design and sense of community, how do you reconcile trendy sites, short-term profit, and lasting community value?
Next question. Oh, my gosh. Well, I would hope some of that would get trimmed down going through the planning commission and council when something like that comes along. If it's really off the rails, it doesn't get proven meet administratively. It goes through those two boards, the planning commission and the council. And I would hope we, if I get on the council, have enough sense to say no to some of that craziness. Thank you.
Mr. Barr.
Yeah, well, I can't speak to someone else's short-term profits. I need to know what that really refers to. But honestly, the ULUC and the comprehensive plan do reflect a lot of what already exists in the city. Respectively to where the city was with its current land use code and design standards, and to where it is now. Not a ton of substantial changes, I think, have been ultimately made. And I think the changes that have been made are actually going to be reflecting improving areas that were once neglected, business areas that were once neglected. And so I think the hope in this new ULUC is not necessarily to turn our city into some sort of, discotheque from 1980s Europe, nor is it supposed to turn it into some sort of Soviet-style block housing that you see endlessly going on into the landscape. But it is supposed to provide a path forward for different needs and different values and different ways we see us growing as a community. And I think that is really going to be its ultimate purpose and execution.
So I have to admit, my idea of attractive is like colonial buildings, Victorian buildings, 1920s craftsman bungalows. But I'm not running to become like the taste coordinator. Everybody has something that they like. Some people like a more modern look. Some people like a more contemporary look. We've got some outstanding examples of mid-century modern. And what I like in the city is that we have all kinds of buildings. And yeah, there is a role for community values, and you don't put a steel skyscraper up in the middle of downtown Littleton. Obviously, you want to have places where they belong. But I don't think you just say, I don't think, I'm not, I don't going to vote something down simply because the taste isn't mine. That's not fair. I want to be open to new ideas and understanding that people like different things. And that's okay. We have a wonderful, rich, diverse city with all kinds of architecture. Can we make sure that there's some continuity? Sure. But I don't think we need to dismiss anything out of hand.
Yeah, let's place some faith in our comprehensive plan. That didn't just come out of a bunch of people in suits sitting together. That was a community effort that had listening sessions and people buying into that. And let's value that. That hadn't been done in several decades. And now we have a plan to work forward that does reflect those values. And I think that will protect against any trends or things that, those community values run deep. So let's trust in that.
Mr. Buck.
Great question, Ms. Gracious. I even have that report.
So I would say that the best for this is doing effective research where trendy and sustainable coincide, because they're not exclusive. I see the question of saying that there's not, trendy can mean short term. Doesn't have to be. So not all the popular things should be just rejected because they produce long term. Not all popular things should be listened to. We have evidences of that in other cities, in our own city. So I think it's a great question. So the thing is though, to do that well, it takes a lot of work. Can't be lazy about this as leaders. We need to invest in it. We have to ask the right questions. We have to do the research. We have to get information that we need to make decisions. We have to facilitate the city council, the 7 members that are voting, to do that well, to get a productive answer to this, and not just give into a trend or give into a developer, make long-term decisions based on what the current data we have.
Ms. Bay?
The precursor of the comprehensive plan, transportation master plan, was a vision process that spent a whole summer interviewing about 3,000 citizens. And what that determined was that the number one requirement for the citizens' wishes was community character, preserving existing community character. And that means then the ULUC and comprehensive plan having elements in there that preserve looking at community character. For example, not allowing a huge building to be put in next to a one-story building, but requiring transitions. So I don't think that the question represents the reality. It rather represents a fear, but I don't think that's going to happen with the new documents. I'm an optimist.
Yeah, I agree with what Mr. Buck said, that there's nothing mutually exclusive about something that's trendy or something that provides short-term profits. It could also provide long-term profits. It could be, if it's providing profits because it's a good plan for some reason. And so I think it's important to listen to our professional staff when they analyze a project, listen to the community to hear what their thoughts are on a project, how it may or may not affect them. And I think that's really important to be able to do that, to critically analyze such projects to make sure that they do offer quality design and meet our community values. Like Ms. Caper said, my aesthetics of a building should not dictate what the whole city looks like. I love how Littleton Boulevard looks. I love mid-century modern. But just because I don't like a specific color or my neighbor's house being doesn't mean it is objectively bad or poor design.
Thank you. This is a very thick question that deserves far more than a single minute to answer. Whether you want to dig into the comprehensive plan or the ULUC, which is nearly 800 pages, we can talk about both. Whoever among this panel is elected will serve as the stewards between the comprehensive plan, the ULUC, and the desires of the community. Those have been clearly stated every time we have a new subject come up, and we can very quickly touch on and say Aspen Road is at the forefront of all of our minds. The nearby residents have stated that what they want to see isn't in line with what the ULUC and comprehensive plan might detail. We must listen. So whatever the outcome is, they know that they have been heard and understood, and that the best choices for the city are going forward, whatever those may be. Thank you.
Question number 7, and I believe this will probably be the last question according to the time frame on the clock. This question will start with the at-large candidate this time. Question is, this person would like to know your ideas and plans to implement requirements towards reduction of carbon gases.
Sure. Well, our public works director for the city recently put out a plan and the city council to address sustainability and just environmental issues. And there were some to address reducing emissions. Little things that the city can do, from switching, you know, the type of what it uses to sand versus salt, things like that has some pollution issues there. In addition to that, I think shifting to more walkable models could be really helpful in reducing our emissions. I think making the city more walkable in general. And folks, if we can make it more walkable, then we're not in traffic, right? If we can just walk to the burger joint or walk somewhere, then we're not using those cars and we're not, you know, getting extra frustrated, you know, when we're tail on Santa Fe. So I think as we start implementing some policies that address that and bolster more scooters or more, you know, mass transit, the bus and things like that, we can cut down on our carbon footprint.
So I'm quite lucky. Yeah, I don't know, I'll just boost, okay. I'm quite lucky in that I can walk to downtown Littleton from where I'm at, and I can bike just about anywhere in the city. So when I want something to, you know, something delicious, I can walk downtown. But I did one of those map quests to see what it would take to take a bus to where I work. I teach at Regis University. It would be an hour and a half each direction. There are a lot of folks in this city that have to commute one way or the other. Maybe they have to drop off kids at school. Maybe they need to go to work. Maybe they need to do both. But the fact is that most people are going to be using their cars at some point. We need to make sure that we don't have traffic piling up so that we have idling cars, because idling cars are not moving and they're contributing carbon waste there. So we need to work on that. And I also think, you know, let's take a look at what the city's doing with its own buildings, as Gretchen was saying, to make sure that we are running very lean on that. I also think looking at water conservation is really important, given that things are going to get drier and hotter. What can we do with our landscaping, public landscaping, to make sure that we model effective low water use plans?
Good question. This is one that is certainly bigger than just Littleton. Obviously, there is a countrywide concern we have this, and in our state as well. So just want to remind us of that and what we're able to actually do as a city. It's one of the things. What are we actually able to affect? One of the questions we need to define so that we have realistic expectations of what we're able to do. More than just a second. Multimodal is certainly something that, as we talked about, it's very easy for us to tackle as a city with more access, more safe access for biking, pedestrian. My nonprofit that I lead gives bikes to kids in school. I'll make sure they get to school safe. Okay. That's one. And then also the methane reclamation, we have Littleton. It's a great step. And then here's the final thing. Like the homelessness, this is something that I believe we need to take initiative on a regional collaboration. So that if we are going to be serious about this, we need to have a plan and work with other cities to make this a reality.
My mind goes immediately to trash pickup. When I first came here 34 years ago, I was astounded that all the trash trucks we had going on the streets all the time, all the different companies, the noise, the emissions. Council had directed the director of public works to begin looking into the possibility of coordinated trash pickup just before the pandemic hit. And then that, of course, was far backburnered because of all of the things of dealing with the pandemic. Very high on my list as mayor would be to bring back the issue of coordinated trash pickup. And that doesn't mean the city goes into the trash business. That means getting it coordinated so that there isn't all this going on all the time. People are very concerned. Next door apparently is going crazy right now with stories about the city has decided to force whatever down your throat. That's not true. The city is not in that business now.
There's a lot of things that the city can do to address this issue on municipal level. I agree with Councilmember Fay about the coordinated trash. That's one thing we could do. It also help our infrastructure, help our roads from having 6 garbage trucks go by every single day. You know, Mr. Buck referenced the biogas project, wastewater treatment plant. You know, when I was on council, I voted to approve that project. Councilmember Fay voted against it. That project is bringing in revenue to the city. It's making our community cleaner, and it's providing alternative fuels. So I think it's a great project. I think we can do, look at how the city uses our energy from buildings, the alternative energies we can use in the buildings. Look at our fleet. How can we make our fleet greener? I would like to see a sustainability committee put forth to kind of put in place for the community to look at some of the things that we can do that maybe we're not used to, and obviously encourage transit use, biking, walking. People are still going to drive their cars, but we can encourage them to get out of their car when they don't need to get in their car.
Thank you very much to the environmentally concerned citizen who asked this question. I really appreciate it. I wanted to volunteer and go first again on this one. So when I look at what the possibilities are, I love what each person has mentioned because everyone has a perspective. I'd like to offer up several very tangible and doable items that I think the city could initiate very quickly with community interest, which is the tipping point for all good effort. So I would like to propose items like community solar gardens and understanding how solar is interactive into what our community wants and needs and how we are serving each other and our neighbors collectively. As well as actual community gardens. Those are such a beautiful thing to do, and I don't know if anybody started a similar victory garden during the pandemic, but those have great efforts. As well as making sure that we are integrating charging stations into all new parking structures across the board. Thank you.
Two things that I would do. The first one would be to support our Public Works Director Keith's environmental push that he described very well about 3 weeks ago at the City Council. And the second thing, I would support Carol Fay's coordinated trash pickup. Thank you.
Mr. Barr.
So as an environmental engineer, I work with communities all the time on climate change and resiliency and sustainability projects. One of my big pushes and loves would be to see a water resources master plan that has conservation in that 50-year, 100-year time horizon in the city's future. We need to get ahead of this game flat out. As you all probably have seen, air quality and local pollution problems not only contributing to global warming, but are increasingly contributing to increased risk of respiratory health disease. This has to be at the forefront of our priorities. It is a sleeping giant that it is a huge issue for the Denver metro area. Electrification of our transportation and natural gas transportation can be a part of that component, but if you're looking for the biggest impacts that you're going to be able to make on climate change, is anything in terms of redeveloping and doing energy efficiency and sustainable development for existing buildings, turning those into places that are using that energy properly. That is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. And
Thank you very much. Your answers have been extremely enlightening and giving thought to help us decide what the city of Littleton will go for in the future. Now you have one last assignment, and that is a 1-minute closing statement. We're going to start with in table first with the at-large candidates. And Gretchen, if you will go first, and then we'll proceed down the line.
Folks, I'm asking for your vote today in the at-large race. I want to bring my experience as a listener and a social worker into the city council. I want to make sure I'm strengthening relationships across the board with all of our partners because we cannot do this effort alone. We are not a silo. We need to work with Denver Metro. We need to work with many folks to get our ideals and agendas passed. So I hope I can do that. I want to make sure we're supporting our businesses. COVID was tough on them. Of all the businesses that Littleton lost, 30% of those were because of COVID. So I want to make sure that this stuff isn't going away, that our businesses feel supported by the community, and that they have the freedom to do what they do best, which is their business. And finally, I just want to make sure that we're getting all the money that we have to the American Rescue Plan, and that's filtering down to the local governments like us, that we're able to execute on that and get the biggest bang for a buck.
You know, what's exciting is when you look up here, half of the people up here are women. I think that's great. I just think that's great. I love the diversity of people up here. But one thing we are all unified in is that we absolutely love this city. I love this city. I want to use my 25 years of public policy experience to take it to even greater heights. It's one of the best cities probably in the world. And yeah, I have been to all of them, no, I'm kidding. But I love this city. I have been around the world, but I've only lived in a couple of other cities, and I want us to do the planning and the ordinances to make the city more livable, more secure, and greater opportunity. That is less traffic, greater opportunities to own a home, greater opportunities to open a business, and certainly more secure so that, again, we're not stepping over needles. We're not at risk of having a house robbed or a business robbed. This is a safe, beautiful, family-friendly community. I'm asking for your vote. Thank you so much.
Mr. Barr.
So at the risk of painting a target on my back, I'm going to go ahead and throw out there the fact that, yes, I have not lived in Littleton my entire life, but part of who I am as a person, part of who I am as a neighbor, part of who I am in my profession and my personal life is giving back to my community. My family is here. My daughter is going to school here. My parents live here, thank God, and take her on the weekend. This is home. This is home to me. This is home to my family. I'm invested. I'm invested in the place that I live. I'm invested in the people. And to be honest, coming into this fresh means I'm hungry. I'm hungry to hear what you guys have to say. It's part of what makes me thrive as a professional, but it also gives me so much just personal love and satisfaction in my life to do good things for people. And that's what I want to do in this job. So I hope you guys can find it in yourselves to vote for me.
I'd like to use what I've learned over the last 50 years about Littleton and city council and whatnot. For you, we were talking about the city council and the city manager and the staff a little while ago. Well, we neglected one main part of that hierarchy. It's you folks at the top of that thing. And I would simply ask for your vote so I can work for you, please.
Thank you. So one of the best parts of Littleton, we have said, is the people. The welcoming nature, that Steve doesn't feel like he has been left out, whether you have been here for 2 years or multiple generations. That is what Littleton is about. And I look forward to bringing not only my professional background, my commitment to this community, the fundraising that I have done in our schools as digital director for Bond 4A for that $298 million that Krista might have voted on. We really appreciate that vote. And ask you in joining others in your support. I have been very fortunate to have a wonderful support system and team behind me, coming with you with endorsements from former Representative Joe Rice, current Representatives Lisa Cutter, Meg Froelich, Dr. Michelson Janae, Jennifer Bacon, Dominique Jackson, and most recently the endorsement of Congressman Jason Crow. Thank you very much.
Well, if I haven't said so already, welcome to Littleton, Steve. I think I speak on behalf of all of us. We're glad you're here. My name is Kyle Schlachter, and I'm running to be the first directly elected mayor of Littleton. I think I'm best suited for the job. I think I have the most experience of any of the candidates running for mayor. And I think I'm best suited to work respectfully and collaboratively with the rest of council, with the staff, and with the community at large. And so I hope you will consider voting for me and go to my website, kyleforlittleton.com, to find out more information on me. I know we only have a little bit of information up here. There's a lot more out there. So thank you for attending and thank you for being engaged in this and coming to this. Thanks.
A problem that Littleton has had throughout the years is us versus them, no matter which side it is, Democrats versus Republicans for more housing, those who don't want development, all of that stuff. I grew up in a unique situation My father was an extreme liberal, so extreme that he was a conscientious objector in World War II. That meant he spent his time in swamps, training swamps. He did serve. My mother was an extreme conservative. She believed that the kids who were my age then killed at Kent State, quote, got what they deserved. My job was to keep the peace and to keep the household running. So I am absolutely sure that by nature and skills developed all the way back to when I was a child, I can keep the peace and keep the household running, metaphorically.
I want to look to this model we're doing today as what we need to do as a city going forward, which is have discussions, have everyone's voice heard. I think it's fair to say that not everyone in this room agrees about everything. That's fair. And we all have different opinions, and that's important. We need to hear those voices. We need to have the information from all the citizens, have them at the table for what we need going forward. So I appreciate you guys coming here. I appreciate all that are watching from home, having healthy discussions, seeking to understand, and listening to someone doesn't mean that you're condoning what they're saying. You can listen, be confident in what you have and what you believe. We can all do that as citizens. I do believe that what we need is leadership, not political prowess. I think I would actually want you guys to compare qualifications and experience. Please go to my site, John Buck for Mayor, JLN, FORMAYOR.com. Check out. Yeah, no use. Thank you.
Very entertaining, enlightening, and wonderful viewpoints expressed today. Thank you very, very much. Let's give the candidates a round. Arapahoe, County, thank you all for your participation in the election process. Good luck and good afternoon to all of you.